Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online regulation C VGC ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. In this video, I'll be trying out a really fun Trick Room team featuring Stantler. Now, you might be wondering, why in the world would you use Stantler? It's not a common Pokemon in VGC whatsoever. And the answer is that it has a couple of things that make it really unique. First of all, it gets access to Intimidate, which is obviously an incredible ability, and perhaps more importantly, it's a normal type Pokemon that gets access to Trick Room. Now, a lot of the common Trick Room users in the format share the same problem, and that's that they're weak to Flutter Mane. Flutter Mane's the most common Pokemon in the format right now, so being weak to it does not really help your chances of setting up Trick Room. Stantler, however, is normal type, so it's completely immune to Shadow Ball, and with a good Poison Terra, you can also defensively cover for attacks such as Fairy type attacks and Fighting type attacks. So this team uses Stantler to set up Trick Room and a lot of strong sweepers such as Choice Specs Sylveon, Charcoal Torkoal, as well as Arboliva. The team also has an offensive Garganacl set, which I think is super interesting, and it's also one of the main reasons I wanted to try it out. So it's a really fun Trick Room team. I think Trick Room is just underplayed right now, and I think this is such a unique way to utilize that strategy. So as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps down below. And thanks so much as always for watching. If you enjoy, I'd really appreciate it if you consider leaving a like in the video or subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out a ton, and we are days away from getting to 200k subs. So thanks so much for joining me, and let's get started. First of all, this team was created by a Japanese player who brought it to the Japanese National Championship online qualifier. They finished with 10 wins and 4 losses, which was good for top 50 in the event, and this team was definitely optimized for best of one closed team sheet ladder play, hence a lot of the surprising sets. And so I linked their Twitter down in the description below, as well as a rental pace, and they wrote a brief team report in this in Japanese as well, so all of that good stuff is down below. And question of the day, with us using Stantler, I want to know what's one Ebuolite user you would buff, and how would you buff it down in the comment section below. Now, the first Pokemon to talk about, of course, here is the Stantler. Like I mentioned in the introduction, Stantler is really unique because it's a normal type Pokemon that gets access to Trick Room, and this is a utility-based set. As you'll notice, it doesn't actually have any attacks, and the main idea is let the Stantler is fully here to set up Trick Room, and then enable its partners, which have really strong spread type attacks, right? So you're often just bringing Stantler and then clicking Trick Room immediately. Then afterwards, you can, decide between Hypnosis, Reflect, or Helping Hand. Between Intimidate and the Reflect, by the way, you can really make physical attackers super, super sad. It's really valuable into things like Chim-Pao, as well as Ting-Lu and Dragonite, for example. So yeah, you just got a lot of bulk to work with, and the main thing to know with the Stantler is that obviously after you set up Trick Room, you're not really going to be dealing any damage with it, so you either need your Pokemon next to it to do a lot of damage and pick up knockouts, or you might want to consider switching out Stantler so you have a little bit more offensive pressure on the field, and Poison Terra is just really nice against Fairy and Fighting type attacks in particular. So Stantler, I actually often Terra just to make sure I get Trick Room up, and the difference between setting up Trick Room with this team and not setting up Trick Room is night and day. If you don't get Trick Room up, it's often a complete disaster if you have, the Sylveon, the Torkoal, the Arboliva in the bag. So setting up Trick Room is really crucial, but between Intimidate and Poison Terra and Stantler's normal typing, you've got a really good shot at setting it up. So what's interesting about this team is it's our Trick Room team, but there's no redirection user, there's no fake out user. Instead, you just have a lot of immediate offense. And so I often lead with Stantler, something like Sylveon, which just pressures with Choice Specs Hyper Voice immediately. This is Specs Sylveon. Nothing too crazy about it. The main thing to call out is that it's Grass Terra. So Grass Terra is really valuable in just giving you immunity to Amoonguss' Spore, which otherwise could be really annoying. And Hyper Beam is just for a huge amount of burst damage. Terra Blast is actually a really consistent move, even if you're not Terra'd with Sylveon, just for a single target attack. So Stantler plus Sylveon, really effective lead. You can also go with Stantler, really plus any of the Pokemon. Torkoal here is pretty straightforward as well. It's a Charcoal set, and of course the idea is to do as much damage as possible. One thing to note is that you have Solar Beam instead of something like Earth Power, just to give you some better coverage into water type Pokemon. The third sweeper with the spread move here is Arboliva. This Arboliva was actually mainly designed to give you a better matchup into Dondozo Tatsugiri, because with this Arboliva, you can of course just keep strength sapping into Dondozo, and with Harvest as well, you can just continue to heal back and get your Sitrus Berry. The way Harvest works, by the way, is that you have a 50% chance to get your berry at the end of the turn. So if Sitrus Berry has been consumed, then 50% chance to immediately get it back, and if Torkoal has set up the Sun, or Sun is up in general, then it's 100%, which is really cool as well. Hyper Voice plus normal Terra just does pretty decent damage, and Pollen Puff allows you to heal up your teammates as well. To round things out, you've got Garganacl. This Garganacl set is honestly really bonkers. I have never seen Garganacl used this way, but it's basically designed to catch opponents off guard because it has a really good matchup, especially with Rock Blast and Hearthstone into something like Chien-Pao, right? Where you can just break through the Focus Sash and get a knockout immediately. It's invaluable into things like Focus Sash Chi-Yu, for example, as well. And the main thing is when people go up against Garganacl, they are almost never expecting it to be offensive, right? Most people expect Purifying Salt, Salt Cure with Recover, Wide Guard, potentially Protect, right? But this Garganacl is like, hey, I can actually do a lot of damage to you. It's also valuable into some of the common taunt users, whether you run into something like Talonflame or Murkrow. With those, you can try to KO them early with the rock type attacks and then set up Trick Room with Stantler afterwards. The final Pokemon here is just Fluttermane, Modest, max special attack, max speed with Focus Sash, and the Flutter is really nice in just cleaning up games. Sometimes there are scenarios where maybe you lead Stantler and Torkoal and your opponent like really aggressively doubles up to KO Stantler, but then Torkoal gets a really powerful Eruption off and gets a knockout or two. Then you bring out Fluttermane and you can just sweep from there. And so Flutter is really nice in making sure you don't only rely on slow Pokemon to win the game, because of course the nature of using a team like this is you might not actually win the game while Trick Room is set up, and sometimes like Trick Room will just be completely stalled out, and then if you don't go with Fluttermane, then all of your other Pokemon are fairly slow and are going to get outsped, and you can get really overwhelmed afterwards. But Fluttermane is a really nice closer for this team. You of course could lead it as well to put on some offensive pressure and just start dishing out damage immediately. Like Flutter Stantler I think is also fine if your opponent's team is just really Flutter weak, because it's really hard for them to respond to the combination of both. But basically, I generally ask myself, one, do they have answers to Stantler? And that's primarily, do they have Taunt or a way to really deny Trick Room? Because if not, I am often just leading Stantler and then trying to figure out what is the best partner for it where my opponent can't easily knock them out and what Pokemon can deal the most amount of damage to their team as well. So it's normally Stantler plus one of the Pokemon with spread type attacks, but Flutter, Garganacl, really all of these Pokemon are viable leads with Stantler. And then I try to often have Flutter as like the fourth Pokemon to bring in the back to clean up games with. And then obviously one of the other sweepers kind of in between. So yeah. That's it for a quick breakdown. Let's quickly highlight some weaknesses. So in terms of weaknesses, the first thing I'll call out is that there is a spread attack on every Pokemon here other than Stantler, so Wide Guard or even just the pressure of it can be really scary. Especially in closed team sheet where maybe you go up against a Pokemon that could have Wide Guard like Garganacl or Armarouge, but you don't know if they have it, but you're scared to click moves because of the threat of it. That alone can be a really big issue. Armarouge I just listed, that in particular is a really tough matchup for this team because there's basically no immunities or resistances to Psychic, so Expanding Force in general can cause a lot of problems as well. I know the original team creator mentioned that Fire Ting Lu in particular can be a big problem, especially if it's Assault Vested, because you just can't really deal that much damage with it, with any of these Pokemon other than Garganacl, so you'd have to really rely on Garganacl carrying it specifically into that matchup. Stantler in general, really great Pokemon, but sometimes your opponents can take advantage of the fact that it doesn't have any attacks, and of course now if you see this video and you're going up against this team, you can leverage that to your advantage as well. I think one of the advantages of this team before, you know, making a video on this is that the original team creator, they had so many surprises and it was basically impossible to predict a lot of these surprises. But now that the team is public or a little bit more public, you of course can use that information to your advantage. And for Stantler in particular, basically after it sets up Trick Room, it's in this weird spot where like it can provide really good support, but it can't actually deal damage. And so sometimes I've had issues where it's like, okay, Stantler, even when I have Helping Hand support to boost my partner Pokemon, it's like the partner Pokemon isn't getting up knockouts, and then my opponents just keep targeting around Stantler, and that can be a problem, right? And naturally looking at this moveset, Taunt is a huge issue. If you lead Stantler, your opponent has Taunt, Stantler is just completely useless. And so when I see potential Taunt users, whether it be like Talonflame or Murkrow, I often put Stantler in the back, or I just don't lead with this immediately. Obviously, if your opponent has Trick Room on their side of the field, they could potentially reverse it, whether it be like a bulky entity with Trick Room, for example. And so that can be scary as well. And with Sylveon in particular, right, like it's choice specs. And so, you know, you have to commit. And then afterwards, if your opponent has like a strong steel type Pokemon, it can wall Sylveon, right? And Torkoal, if you want one Pokemon to really wall it, Armarouge is honestly the best one, which is why I think this team is very, like, I really don't want to go up against Armarouge while using this team. It is super, super scary, but obviously the usage of that Pokemon isn't super high. So, yeah. And then with Garganacl, obviously it doesn't have Protect. Actually, there's no Protect on Garganacl, on Arboliva, Sylveon, Stantler, so you can take advantage of that if you're going up against this team. So, yeah. All right, first game here, and we are up against the team that recently won Portland Regionals. Tusk, Flutter, Torkoal, Jumpluff, Chien-Pao, and Kingambit. So if I want to set up Trick Room, how do we get there? I think Stantler into Gambit is kind of rough. For example, I think like a Tusk plus Gambit lead here is pretty strong. Grass Terra Sylveon is actually really interesting. I think I'm going to go with Stantler, but later on in this game. So I'm thinking like Flutter plus Sylveon. Stantler plus Torkoal. The main idea here is if I lead Stantler and they lead King Gambit, I just don't think that's good for us. And yeah, to activate Define already is pretty bad. I don't have that much offense to threaten immediately. Whereas I think like Sylveon plus Flutter is interesting because like let's say you go with like Tusk plus the Gambit. I can go Grass Terra Sylveon. So suddenly I resist, you know, Tusk's ground type attacks. And then just Hyper Voice. And Specs Hyper Voice is obviously really strong here. I guess one of the interesting things to consider is does Tusk go for a Terra then in response as well? I could also try to prioritize knocking out the Gambit earlier. Could consider something like a Moonblast plus a Hyper Beam into it. But it's just going to be Chien-Pao and Flutter. Okay. Against this, what do I want to do? It's a good time to bring out Stantler. We're focus sashed here. I think I could also protect Flutter, switch into my Stantler. But I think Specs Hyper Voice just applies so much pressure here. I'm down to go for it and just switch in my Stantler. If they end up Shadow Balling into that slot, I think we just get a Trick Room up on turn 2. So we'll see what move they commit to with the Flutter. But I like that Sylveon's applying so much offensive pressure here while Stantler pressures with Trick Room next turn. Okay, Ice Spinner into the Flutter slot. See if they went for Shadow Ball. It's Gleam. That's fine. I'm okay with Gleam just because Specs Hyper Voice does so much damage here. Now I pressure with both Trick Room as well as... yeah, Trick Room as well as double knockout with Hyper Voice. I think it's actually worth considering Terrying here. Because, like, they probably want to knock out Sylveon to make sure that I don't get the Hyper Voice double KO. Yeah. So, Dazzling Gleam, just to make sure we survive with Stantler, with Poison Terra. If they double up into Sylveon, but I get Trick Room up, then I have Stantler plus Torkoal next to each other. And I just start clicking Helping Hand Hyper Voice. Sorry, Helping Hand Eruption. So, this is Fairy Terra. Yep. So, I think the Fairy Terra here is to try to KO Stantler, right? But the beauty is, with this team, I'm applying so much damage. Like, it's weird because there's no Fake Out user. There's no Redirection user, right? That's normally what you expect with Trick Room. But Sylveon, Torkoal, Arboliva, they honestly all pressure a ton in terms of damage. And so it's like, how do you actually deal with the combination of both right now? So, Poison Terra Stantler. And one of the main reasons this is a really interesting Trick Room user is because of that immunity to Shadow Ball to start, right? So, they actually opt for Sucker Punch. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Probably to cover for Quick Attack, but we're Choice Specs here. So, yep, there's Dazzling Gleam. And both Pokemon survive. 1 HP on Sylveon, which obviously makes things even better for us. So, we'll get the double knockout here, and we'll successfully set up Trick Room. Wow, amazing. Okay. That's why Poison Terra is so nice on Stantler, because this thing is just an absolute wall against Flutter Mane, which obviously is everywhere right now. So that's why you use Stantler as a Trick Room user. Alright, they're going to bring out Torkoal and Gambit as their last one. Now, since they committed their Terra, our Torkoal should be very well positioned. They might just get a double knockout here, but that's fine. I think the question is whether or not it makes sense to switch, but I honestly think the answer is no. Because, like, I think I just give up both Pokemon, bring out Torkoal, click Eruption, protect Flutter, and then go from there. So, we'll just give up both Mons this turn. I doubt I ever get this Reflect off, but I don't know if I click, like, Heat Wave, for example, and miss. There's a chance. I guess Hypnosis also would have worked. They went for Fissure. You know, the reason for that is because it's Eject Pack on the Torkoal. It's overheat eject pack. And so my opponent is like, okay, I don't want to click overheat. I actually forgot about that. Forgot that that was the set. So, yeah, that works. I'm down to just Helping Hand and Eruption now. Guarantee the knockout, and then Flutter can just deal with their Torkoal. We have Reflect. Sucker Punch really shouldn't do that much. Helping Hand should give us the extra edge that we need to get the KO. So, yeah. I think the reality of this matchup is I didn't necessarily 100% need Trick Room to win. Just because my Torkoal actually would have been decent in this endgame against their Torkoal and King Gambit, as long as I was like avoiding a potential Fissure hit. Sucker Punch only does 32 damage there. Now we get Helping Hand, Charcoal boosted, some boosted Eruption, and that just KOs Gambit. Beautiful. Back Torkoal on that team is pretty interesting, because the only real purpose I think it had was to enable the Flutter for a special attack boost. I guess my opponent may have been worried about like Arboliva as well, but yeah. It's not normally that common to see it in the back like how my opponent brought it here. But yeah, Helping Hand Eruption here should get the KO. And even if not, we have my Flutter in the back waiting to come out and just Shadow Ball at this point. So single target Eruption, and that's going to get a KO. So I think this game is the perfect game to highlight Stantler's potential, right? Now, I didn't want to lead with it because I was a little bit worried about King Gambit, like I said, from my opponent. But as soon as I saw Flutter and Chien-Pao, I was like, okay, this is a really fast duo. Choice Specs Sylveon just applies a lot of offensive pressure, and it's just fairly bulky, right? So even a single Hyper Voice can be game-changing, especially right now in a format where there are so many Pokemon that just take a ton of damage from Hyper Voice, whether it be Flutter, as you saw, Chien-Pao, Chi-Yu, Iron Bundle, for example, Iron Hands as well. So, yeah. But once again, one of the main advantages of Stantler is, like, my opponent also went for the right play of Dazzling Gleam, right? If they had committed a Shadow Ball in the beginning of this match, they would have been in so much more trouble because then Stantler would have just completely walled it. So like turn 2 was a little bit scary because I did commit my Terra and theoretically my opponent could have doubled up onto Stantler. But like I said, the idea is, okay, if you have to double up onto Stantler for a KO, and if you double up onto it, then Sylveon just knocks out both of your Pokemon, right? So how do you deal with the pressure of me being able to set up Trick Room as well as Hyper Voice at the same time? And you can only get one of the 2 knockouts there, and it ended up being super ideal where they didn't get either knockout. So yeah. Okay, we've got Ting-Lu, Glimmora, Chien-Pao, Fluttermane, Dondozo, and Dragonite. So it's a bulky team for sure. You can spread poison with Glimmora. Dondozo on these sets are often going to be like leftovers or Sitrus Berry, Yawn, Wave Crash. Could be Assault Vest, Ting-Lu, Focus Sash, Chien-Pao, Specs Flutter, or Booster Energy, Ban Dragonite, maybe AV or Lum. I think Stantler's pretty cool here. We could just try to go for the Trick Room setup. Honestly, like, Stantler plus Garganacl is really interesting to me. I think, like, the physical Garganacl is really unexpected here. And then what do I want in the back? Arboliva feels pretty solid. And Specs Hyper Voice here generally looks pretty strong as well, right? I like it a little bit more than Torkoal, because I think Torkoal's matchup into Ting-Lu isn't the best. So, let's try this out. I'm really excited to use this team. I think it's just got so many big surprises, and obviously it's got a Stantler, which is pretty cool. I think the Garganacl set is also just really interesting to me, right? Because we can go for, like, Rock Blast onto Dragonite if they lead that. It's going to be Glimmora and Ting-Lu. Okay. So we get an Intimidate off. Like, with this, I think I'm honestly down to click Trick Room here. And just go straight for an Earthquake. Yeah. Like, if you haven't seen this team, you would not expect to be worried with Glimmora, exactly. So they go for Mortal Spin. Poisoning me is fine. The Intimidate means Ting-Lu won't do as much damage, which is good. And they just go for Ruination. Works for me. Okay. So here's Earthquake coming out from our Garganacl. Sets up a layer. Toxic Spikes. That's fine. Glimmora's Sitrus Berry, also fine. Which means Dondozo doesn't have it. And we'll get a set up Trick Room. Cool. Okay, with this, I think I'm happy to click Reflect with Stantler. Reflect. And just set up another Earthquake. Like, the downside here is 2 layers of Toxic Spikes being set up, but I think our goal is to just win the game quickly enough where it doesn't end up being super relevant. Lamora does go for Spiky Shield, okay. I think what I'll probably do next turn is honestly hard switch the Stantler out immediately. I could consider setting up Hypnosis as well. But switching it out does allow me to conserve Intimidate. They just continue to click Runation, which is fine. And we get Reflect up. Actually, because the Stantler is faster than the Ting-Lu, aka slower under Trick Room, I'm actually thinking it might make sense to just click Hypnosis here. Because it just makes the Ting-Lu slot completely useless. So I'm down to keep clicking Earthquake here. Like, knocking out our own Stantler is honestly not the end of the world. Because I'm just looking for the switch-ins into Arboliva and Sylveon. It is a shame we didn't get the one-hit knockout with Garganacl on turn 1. That would have been super nice. But here's EQ. Okay. Ting-Lu's at around half. It's another layer of Toxic Spikes. One thing to pay attention to, obviously, though, is how many turns of Trick Room I have left, right? Ting-Lu goes for EQ. It doesn't KO us. Stantler does miss Hypnosis, though, unfortunately. Okay. Would have been so ideal to have hit and then fainted from Poison. That would have been the absolute dream scenario. But, oh well. Let's see what they bring out. It'd be really funny if they bring out Dragonite, and then I just end up going for, like, Helping Hand plus Rock Blast onto it. It's Chien-Pao, so that probably implies Sucker Punch, right? Honestly, don't mind a double switch here. Yeah. And then we can bring Stantler back out for Intimidate. Sylveon with Choice Specs Hyper Voice is really well positioned, obviously. Okay. Switch both out. Eat up the poisons. Yep, they go for Sucker. And Body Press. It's a little unfortunate the Arboliva slot got Body Pressed. I could have switched the other way around. But I was expecting maybe a ground type attack onto that slot. Okay, given that, I'm happy to just switch back out into Stantler, get another Intimidate off, just Hyper Voice here. If we KO the Ting-Lu and Chien-Pao protects, that would be pretty ideal. Because then the Chien-Pao will be at -1 for the remainder of the game. Arboliva can consider going for normal Terra to get around the super effective hit from Ice Spinner. Specs Sylveon is super well positioned right now. Okay, so we'll bring out Stantler. Hey, honestly, even with the Hypnosis miss, things still aren't, like, terrible. Alright, they're going to commit the Terra here. This makes me think it's going to be Poison Terra Ting-Lu. We'll see. I think Poison Terra and then just Runation into Sylveon makes a lot of sense. And I can Earth Power you with Arboliva. Yeah, so Chien-Pao protects. I mean, it's a -2 Ting-Lu with Reflect up, so I don't think its damage output should be that rough. Let's see. Should just be clicking Runation to get around the Intimidate. Oh, they actually go for Earthquake. Okay, that works. I'm very okay with that. Yep, doesn't really do too much. I think with that, I'm happy to bring out the Arboliva now. Trick Room expires. Arboliva does have Pollen Puff here, but it should be Sash, presumably, on Chien-Pao, right? So I'm thinking we go normal Terra here, Hyper Voice, and just Hyper Voice, double Hyper Voice. They could go for Sacred Sword onto Arboliva, obviously, to cover for this, but I don't think we really have that much of a better Terra anyway. Sylveon Grass Terra doesn't really help. I'm not going to Water Terra Garganacl. Might as well do more damage with Hyper Voice. And they go for Spinner. Okay, nice. Great. Activate Sitrus. Big question will be what my opponent's last Pokemon is here. Coronation. Okay, does Hyper Voice from Arboliva get the knockout is my main question. I think it's going to fall short, unfortunately. Let's see. Oh, it does get the knockout. Okay, cool. So double KO there. Normal Terra really giving us the extra damage we need. It's a 3-on-1, but it really boils down to what my opponent's last one is. Because if it's like Flutter main, they could definitely still win. Okay. And part of the question, though, is if you're my opponent, do you anticipate Pollen Puff? Because, like, let's say they protect, and I just switch into something and then Pollen Puff. That's huge. We also get Sitrus Berry from the Harvest, which is nice. What's their last one? Is that Dragonite? Ooh. Okay. So with Dragonite, you kind of have to KO Sylveon here. I could switch out just for the sake of clicking Quick Attack later on. Because what I can do here is go for Strength Sap onto the Dragonite, decrease its attack. But maybe my opponent doesn't respect Garganacl's damage output, so I'm actually down to stay in. Yeah, I'm going to go Strength Sap here, decrease your attack, heal back, and then Hyper Voice. Okay, they just click Earthquake. That makes sense. Arboliva survives. That felt like Choice Band damage, but I guess I can't be 100% sure. Can't say I know my Banded D-Knight into Arboliva calcs that well. Okay, decrease your attack. Heal back up. All the way back to full. Nice. Poison's going to be annoying, but I think Arboliva can solo, especially because we've gotten pretty lucky with these harvests. So we bring out Garganacl. They can't poison us. Be nice if we had Wide Guard here, but we don't. I'm just going to Hyper Voice and Rock Blast. Yep, they just keep clicking Earthquake. I got crit. That sucks. I think with that I can't win because I assume another one KOs after poison damage. Oh man, that is so disappointing. Alright, we'll see. I think another one KOs at this range at -1. Not if we healed up with Harvest though. Okay. Hyper Voice should just KO here. Poison damage is ticking up pretty quickly now, too. Yeah, we hang on. Here's Hyper Voice. Wow. That game was nuts. That was absolutely nuts. We obviously got quite lucky that all the harvests came through with Arboliva. That's one of the reasons why it's such an interesting ability, but yeah, it's basically 50% chance to get the berry at the end of the turn. So I wasn't sure if Arboliva was gonna be able to get those knockouts there in the end, but man, yeah, Stantler set up Trick Room. Like, Toxic Spikes were annoying, but yeah, that crit against Dragonite also saved us in the end. So talk about a roller coaster ending there. Alright, we've got Screamtail, Tinglu, Bronzong, Goldengo, Dragonite, and Chien-Pao here. So, first impression is that Torkoal Eruption looks amazing. What's interesting is they also have a Trick Room component. It definitely could be Howl here on the Screamtail with booster energy. But I think Stantler with Intimidate is pretty nice for that, as well as having Reflect. Arboliva is really nice into Ting Lu. Personally, I'm down for like Sylveon plus Stantler, Torkoal in the back. I think like Flutter in the back is interesting as a closer. Just because post Trick Room, it's pretty valuable with Shadow Ball and Moonblast into my opponent's entire team. It does hit everything for super effective, so I think it's a little bit more consistent here. But let's see. What is interesting here is they have Bronzong, right? So it's like, I don't even know if I actually want to immediately set up Trick Room, but we'll see. My general goal is to, you know, disrupt with Intimidate, maybe set up Reflect or Hypnosis, and then go from there. It's going to be Bronzong and Ting Lu, okay. Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about this is, oh, Clear Amulet. Clear Amulet Ting Lu, okay, that's really interesting. They'll probably Terra here. I wonder if they just go like Terra EQ. But I think forcing them to Terra is still fine. So I'm fine clicking Hyper Voice here. And setting up Reflect here on turn 1. Yep, there's Terra. Probably Poison if I had to guess, right? Oh! What? What is this? Like normal gem explosion? Oh, that's what's coming my way. But it's fine, because I'm setting up Reflect. And you were Intimidated. Okay. Definitely not how I expected this game to start, but it is certainly interesting. It was just Trick Room. Why do they normal Terra there? Huh. I'll take it. I'm just going to click Hyper Voice here and Hypnosis. I'm going to target Bronzong just because I don't know if Bronzong also has Hypnosis. And I go for Iron Defense. That's fine. Heavy Slam. Yep, we survived that. Hyper Voice does so much there. I do miss the Hypnosis. Okay. It's a little scary. Now, what's interesting about this turn is I could actually just go for, like, Grass Terra here to not take super effective damage from Heavy Slam, and then just Helping Hand Hyper Voice to pick up a double KO. Alternatively, I could Terra this, but I don't think it's actually that important to have this out. So yeah, I'm down to go for the Terra here. Hyper Voice, Helping Hand. And even if they end up just like KOing Sylveon here with a double up, honestly I think it's still fine, because then it's a free switch into Torkoal, and then I have Torkoal plus Stantler out next to each other. I guess the normal Terra was probably to cover for Fire Terra Terra Blast on a Bronzong. I don't even think that KOs, quite frankly, but that's my best guess for what they were going for on turn 1. Alright, here's Helping Hand. Perfect. Body Press into Stantler. EQ. Amazing. Even better. Nice. And Choice Specs Hyper Voice now into both. And that's a double knockout. Okay, so we're up 4-2. Terra's committed on both ends. Trick Room is up. I've got Charcoal, Torkoal, and a Sash Flutter main waiting in the back. So you add all of that up, things are looking pretty good right now. Stantler is definitely putting in the work. I think the moveset is just so interesting, right? Being able to reflect, like getting that fast reflect up was so super valuable. Okay, Golden goes in the back. That's obviously fine for Torkoal, and then it's Chien-Pao. So Torkoal's obviously amazing into both of these. They'll probably want to Sucker Punch here into Sylveon. I could switch, but I think Sylveon's honestly done what I've needed to do. I'm happy to just launch a Hyper Voice here. I don't think I need to switch here either. I think Hyper Voice and Hypnosis here is fine. Yep, they Sucker Punch me, that's fine. Gets a crit, that doesn't really matter. This is exactly why I wanted Flutter Mane in the end game, right? Because I'm running out of Trick Room, and so once Trick Room is over, Flutter can take advantage of that. Hypnosis misses. I think if it connected there, it's just immediately game over, but this is still fine. I don't think I needed it to hit. There was no other move to go for at that point, right? Like, I'm not going to click Reflect. I'm not going to reverse Trick Room. I'm not going to bother Helping Handing, so that was the only right decision. The other thing to consider is switching out Stantler, but, like, Stantler does no damage, right? It's only utility, so I want to conserve, or I want to make sure that Flutter and Torkoal come in completely free without taking any damage. Okay. Get our Photosynthesis boost. Yeah, it's just a normal Terra Bronzong, which really caught me off guard. So, last turn of Trick Room here. They could double Protect. I'm just going to click Eruption. We still have a turn to Reflect. Eruption and just Protect here, I think is fine. They should double Protect on their end, honestly. Flutter protects. So they're not protecting here with... Okay, they just Sucker Punch. That's fine. Charcoal boosted Eruption. Nice. And now it's obviously a 2-on-1. So, yeah, I think they had some really interesting techs, right? Like normal Terra Bronzong and then Clear Amulet as well. But in the end, like, Stantler was like, you know what? I'm going to Intimidate you. I'll set up Reflect. What are you going to do to me? Solar Beam never misses here. None of our attacks miss here. So we'll just attack with both. And yeah, that's another Stantler game. This Pokemon is so fun, honestly. Like, I feel like our opponents just don't like really know what to expect from it. And I think the Grass Terra with Sylveon was what really helped us. I wonder if Earthquake even would have knocked out there, honestly. But my opponent was probably expecting me to switch out. But in my head, I think the Terras with this team, like one good Terra just completely sways a battle into your favor. And the amount of damage pressure you have between all these spread attacks is just so powerful when combined with each other. So, yeah. Alright, we've got Hawlucha, Indeedee, Armarouge, Chien-Pao, Azumarill, Flutter Mane. So, I recently featured a team with the Hawlucha, Indeedee, Armarouge core that finished in top 32 at a regional championship in May. It's a really cool team. And the idea is Hawlucha's Unburden, Psychic Seed, Sword Stance, Acrobatics, Protect, Flying Press. Pretty worried about Armarouge here. Like, so if they go with Indeedee plus Hawlucha, we can just Intimidate it with Stantler, set up Trick Room. Sylveon's really good. To beat the Armarouge, I'm probably going to want to rely on Garganacl. Ugh. Wait, I mean, Indeedee Armarouge is just so strong here, right? Because Armarouge also walls Torkoal. I think this is a very negative matchup for us. I don't see a clear solution with no resistances. I could lead Garganacl and bluff Wide Guard. I'm actually down for that. Basically, this is a matchup where I don't think we have a very clear answer. And so, because of that, I have to use the fact that this is best of one and my opponent's probably not seen this team before. And try to use that to my advantage. But honestly, if they know the sets, they would know that Indeedee Armarouge just completely sweeps us. But I see Hawlucha instead. I'll take that. That's a good start. Okay. Yeah, I'm very okay with that. So, I think turn one here, I can just go for Trick Room. And switch the Garganacl out. Into Torkoal. I could go into Sylveon as well. I would kind of force them to Terra. I like Torkoal more here, I think. I'm going to go into Torkoal and then just click Trick Room. The problem is, like, my opponent can respond pretty easily the next turn by, like, I don't know, Protect Hawlucha, swap Intimidate out into Armarouge, but if I get a Hypnosis off, that's obviously huge. I've had fairly good luck with Stantler today. Alright, they just go for Follow Me, that's perfect. Probably a Swords Dance here. That's fine. So now if you're my opponent, you protect Hawlucha and then switch Sylveon out. Sorry, Intimidate out into Armarouge, I think. This also could theoretically have Trick Room, so they could protect Hawlucha and then try to reverse Trick Room. It could be Sashed as well, which would be kind of annoying. I honestly don't think any of our Terras are good here. I guess I could Terra this. Yeah, I'm just going to send it. Eruption, Hypnosis. They stayed in. So that makes me think Intimidate is trying to reverse Trick Room right now. But that means if Hypnosis hits... Like, if they didn't bring Armarouge in the back here, Torkoal can sweep pretty quickly. So that's what I'm hoping for. Oh, is it just a double protect? See, that makes sense, but the problem for my opponent in making that play is now you can't just pivot out the Armarouge in for free. I think one of the other debates I have is whether or not I should be clicking Reflect. But I like Hypnosis to bait an Armarouge switch in. Because if we land Hypnosis as Armarouge switches in, it's a disaster for them. The upside is like this Swords Dance, not really that scary right now. But, I don't know. I could Helping Hand Eruption now. That guarantees at least one KO here. I guess this could be Sashed, so not guarantees. Like, if this were Sashed, you could switch this out into Armarouge. The debate on who to Hypnosis here actually is interesting. I'm going to target the Hawlucha slot because I could see that switching out with more likelihood, but it is Intimidate swapping, which is fine. Like, the reason I'm okay with this is because I know the Hawlucha already protected last turn. So, yeah, this is what I was expecting the previous turn. We'll see if Hawlucha can actually survive Eruption here. I don't know. Like, yeah, you have a special defense boost, but this is still such a strong attack. We get a crit, so I don't really get to find out whether or not it would have KO'd. I honestly really think it would have, but I don't know. Oh, Stantler's been so good. I feel like if this Hypnosis actually hit as much as it has hit today, then this Pokemon would be like, I wouldn't say like busted, but yeah, like I haven't really missed that many Hypnosises, and that's made the game a lot easier to play. So they bring Intimidate back out. 2 turns of Trick Room. You would think just this protects right now, right? But I'm still down to click Eruption. This has done its job. So I'm down to bring out the Garganacl now. Because with Garganacl, I can just click Rock Blast into Armarouge. This matchup was a nightmare on paper, so the fact we've even got it at this point, I'm already happy enough. Yeah, Intimidate goes for the obvious protect. It's fine. I think the main thing I'm basically trying to do is say, okay, you know what? Your Armarouge can hit me, but nothing else can. And since I've already given it a Flash Fire boost, it's fine. I can just keep giving it... I mean, I can keep hitting into that slot, basically. Last turn of Trick Room. So I'm just going to click Eruption here again. And, yeah, I think this is the time to try Rock Blast onto Armarouge. Actually, maybe Stone Edge is just better. I'm just a little wary of it missing. And I could see a world in which they don't Terra the Armarouge here. We'll see if they decide to Terra. NDD switches. Terraing Armarouge is absolutely the correct decision here. But if they don't find that and Rock Blast just KOs, that's game over, I think. Alright, they found it. Nicely done. Yeah, so I could definitely still lose this. If Armarouge just wakes up right now, Expanding Force can just sweep my entire team. And honestly, I think it's just because this team has basically no Armarouge matchup. And that's because Armarouge just is not very meta right now, right? So it's like, yeah, it's okay being weak to a certain strategy if you don't expect to play it in like 90+% of your games. Rock Blast. 1, 2, 3. So even if actually they didn't Terra, we still wouldn't have KO'd. And they do manage to wake up. Okay. I was going to make this a lot harder. Honestly, like I was talking about bluffing wide guard. I still have Sylveon in the back as well, right? So I guess I shouldn't discount Specs Hyper Voice. Terrain disappears now as well. And Sun. I think, I mean, I could just set up Trick Room again with Stantler, right? And then just go Stantler plus Sylveon under Trick Room. The problem is, I don't know Armarouge's moveset, because if it has Wide Guard, I'm in a lot of trouble with... And I'm Spec, so it's like, would I rather click Hyper Beam? This is a tough decision to make. They also don't know about Garganacl's moveset here. Oh, wait. I can just Terra Blast, right? That's actually my strongest option to get around Wide Guard. I can Terra Blast into you, and then switch you out into Stantler. Okay, they make the switch, so they're going to probably be clicking Expanding Force here. Which we should survive. They might protect. If they protect, though, that'll be frustrating, because then it meant I could have Hyper Voiced. Yeah, it's just like we don't have any immunities or resistances to Psy Spam here, so it's pretty tough to deal with. But, you know, if Armarouge just sleeps for a little bit longer, I think it's a very different game. Okay, they do just click Expanding Force. Sylveon should survive this. I've just taken so much damage across the board. It would have been better to give up Garganacl there. Also, Hyper Voice would have ended up being better there. But I was just so afraid of Wide Guard. Like, I didn't want to Wide Guard and then have the Azumarill just get a free attack off into my Sylveon slot. And this is rough because now I don't get the Intimidate off. I guess I do have Hypnosis still, though, right? So... I can switch Sylveon out into Garganacl here. And try to Hypnosis into Azumarill. I guess Helping Hand Terra Blast was also a consideration. This might also just KO me. Let's see. Oh, it does. Okay, GG. Yeah, like, in order to have won this game, I needed Armarouge to basically stay asleep for 3 turns, I think. Without that, there was not much of a shot. Last turn, I could have clicked Hyper Voice and sacrificed Garganacl. Then I at least would have gotten a free switch in into Stantler without taking any damage. But I think the reality is Sylveon just still goes down too quickly. So, yeah. It's just a shame because, like, there is just no Armarouge answer here, really. It walls us. And I think it's still winnable. Let's see if Psychic would have just KO'd outright. Oh my gosh, yeah. Indeed was just too strong this endgame anyway. So, nicely done by my opponent. I think this is a near auto-loss matchup. Like, I think I got the most I could have asked for by hitting that Hypnosis, but I needed Armarouge to stay asleep for... Like, if it's a 3-turn sleep, then Garganacl can actually just KO it, right? I could have Stone Edged that slot the subsequent turn, but yeah. I guess I could have considered conserving my Terra. I don't like Water Terra Garganacl maybe could have been relevant way in the end game. But yeah, Arboliva's normal Terra. I don't think bringing Flutter really solves anything against Grass Terra Armarouge either. So I think this is a good example of when a team just has a very noticeable weakness into a certain Pokemon strategy or archetype, and that's just how the game works sometimes. You're not always going to be able to cover for everything, right? And Intimidate Armarouge was really meta when Scarlet and Violet VGC first started, but Armarouge usage right now is like super low, right? Outside of that, Intimidate Armarouge Hawlucha team specifically, like I have not really seen too many other Armarouges at a high level at the most recent like regional championships. And so, yeah, it's just kind of those things where it's like, okay, you accept that you have an auto loss or a very tough matchup into a certain Pokemon or strategy, but as a result, you have a better matchup into a lot of other things. So, yeah, the main thing in that one was there's just no way to stop expanding force at the end of the day. So, yeah, I was hoping to catch my opponent off guard, like bluff the wide guard with Garganacl, but in the end, it wasn't enough. And they also didn't lead Armarouge, which at first I was like, oh, this looks really good. You know, they went with the Hawlucha mode, but the problem is I just like don't have enough ways to KO Armarouge quickly enough. I maybe should have just gone for the Stone Edge, hope for a critical hit. I guess I wouldn't have made too much of a difference, though, because I don't think it would have even KO'd since they did correctly Grass Terra there. But yeah, my opponent found the right place with Armarouge, right? They knew to Grass Terra specifically in that position, kept the Armarouge alive for a little bit longer, and kept them in the game as well. Okay, we've got Golden Go, Hands, Flutter, Pelipper, Tusk, and the Chimpao. A little bit worried about Wide Guard on Pelipper. Water Terra Garganacl is honestly really interesting as a lead with Stantler here. Because in my head, if we KO Pelipper, it opens the door for Torkoal completely in this battle. Flutter does hit a lot for super effective. Sylveon Hyper Voice is decent, but obviously Golden Go is a little scary for it. Could also consider leading Sylveon here instead of Garganacl, I think. But Rock Blast Garganacl is really intriguing to me. What do I want as the fourth? I honestly think you can make good arguments for all three. I think I like Arboliva the least just because it's pretty weak into Hands. Hands in general right now is kind of scary. I think I like Flutter. Yeah, I foresee myself using Torkoal for the majority of the mid game. I guess there's a chance they don't lead Pelipper though, right? But I could still put in work with Garganacl even if they don't lead Pelipper. I mean, they actually shouldn't lead Pelipper now that I think about it. So maybe it would have been better to go like Stantler Sylveon lead, Garganacl in the back. That could have been interesting. Ideal world, they bring Pelipper immediately and we just Rock Blast KO them while setting up Trick Room. But it's Tusk Flutter. Okay. Okay, what do I want to do against this? I'm thinking Poison Terra because they might close combat that slot, set up Trick Room here. Do I think it's going to be Sash here on Flutter? Probably not. It's just a question if I want to Stone Edge or Rock Blast. Okay, Terra, Trick Room. I'm going to go for Rock Blast here. So we should get Trick Room up, which is good. But yeah, this is where if I had let Sylveon would have been really nice here. I think I was just too overly afraid of Wide Guard, honestly. But if I KO Flutter and get Trick Room up turn 1, I think it's totally fine. I just Gleam, okay. And CC into us, good. Solid. Nice, Rock Blast connects. 1, 2. Only 2 hits. It's a little frustrating, but it's fine. Get Trick Room up. Okay, with that, I am down to go for... Ooh, it's a question of whether or not I should Reflect or Hypnosis here. I'm down to Reflect. I think it's a little bit more consistent into Rock Blast here. Rock Slide does give me a flinch chance. And based on that damage output to Flutter, it looks like it should KO. Alright, I'll Reflect and Rock Slide here. Flinch chance onto Tusk is honestly pretty valuable. They're actually going to Terra. Interesting. Terra what? Tusk. Huh. Steel? Okay. Well, now you're weak to Earthquake. And Torkoal's going to Eruption to KO that pretty easily. But they should have Pelipper in the back, right? Rock Slide double connects. Great. KO's Flutter. We get Reflect up. So Reflect plus Intimidate onto Tusk has been adding up. And they actually Headlong Rush Stantler. Okay, fine by me. That was a crit. I'm pretty sure I would have lived without that, given that they're not choiced, Life Orbed, and I had Intimidate and Reflect up. So it's a little bit frustrating because it was an opportunity to maybe get a Hypnosis off, but that's fine. I think awkwardly enough, I still will bring Torkoal out here, even though I expect Pelipper to come out from their end. But the thing is, with Pelipper, I can just Rock Blast you, right? Oh, that works. That's totally okay. So obviously, Torkoal's looking really good right now. We know it's not Scarf Grey Tusk as well, given the mix-up. 3 turns of Trick Room. So I'm happy clicking Eruption here. I'm fine clicking Rock Blast into Tusk, because I could see that switching out into Pelipper as Chien-Pao protects. Nice. Show me Pelipper. Yep. Okay, good. They just sucker, that's fine. We get Eruption. Cool. Rock Blast connects, nice. Let's go. Okay, so that feels good. There's still 2 turns of Trick Room. Earthquake's doing more damage right now from Garganacl. I still have Flutter in the back as well. Pretty easy for them to just like protect Earthquake right now. Yeah, this game still isn't won yet. But I think Protect Torkoal here and Earthquake is fine. Ideally, Chien-Pao protects here, so then I just KO it next turn. That also works. Actually, it's better for them to not, protect, because now I just KO with DQ. Okay. Super effective into Tusk. Beautiful. Yeah, I think the Steel Terror on Tusk that turn was interesting. I was wondering what like attack they were afraid of, but maybe just a potential strong attack from the Stantler. In this game, the crit on Stantler actually probably benefited me more in the long run. So last turn of Trick Room, just click Eruption here. Eruption single target should just KO, but no need to risk switching because the Flutter Shadow Ball will always win at this point. With Focus Sash, it honestly doesn't really make too much of a difference. Switching there probably just accelerates the game by 1 turn. Maybe 2 turns, but knowing I have Sash Flutter in the back, there's no reason to risk anything here. Okay. Trick Room expires. Yeah, we have Flutter in the back, so honestly, I'm happy to just attack with both here. Heat Wave plus EQ. Even if both Pokemon feign here, we win with Flutter in the back. So they go for Rock Slide. Crits the Garg, that's fine. Heat Wave connects, single target onto Tusk, and that's a KO. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing here is we had a good Trick Room set up in the early game, and once again, like, Stantler has been so good in setting up Trick Room for us in all of these games, right? And that's because, like, once again, one reason I love this team is it's hey, you know, Fluttermane, you're super meta right now. Well, I'm going to create a Pokemon and set that can really match up well into Fluttermane and can make it really easy to set up Trick Room. So, yeah. I had so much fun with this team. Like, I feel like we got to really highlight all of the different pieces in different games. Obviously, Torkoal and Sylveon were huge. Arboliva was incredible in that second game in particular. And we also just had Stantler set up Trick Room practically in everything. So, at the end of the day, like, I feel like the team won all the games it was supposed to. And then that one loss, obviously, was to a really tough matchup. But that's what I mean, right? It's like, once again, you're not going to face Armarouge that frequently. And you can't ever build a perfect Pokemon team. Every team is weak to something. And so, you know, you just have to hope to play your best in those suboptimal matchups, and I'm pretty pleased with how I approached it overall. I think I had to have a lot go right in order to have a chance at winning that one, but you can always think about where I could have improved, and I think maybe there was the opportunity to, like, pivot in Sylveon as soon as I expected Armarouge to come in, so I could pressure it with just, like, a Choice Specs Hyper Beam. I think that's where I could have improved my play in that specific matchup, so yeah. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one, so thanks so much as always for joining me. Leave a like if you enjoy, and I'll see you all next time. All right, peace.